I'm so curious about this interconnection, about that we are a lot of people here on Earth, yet we have this idea that we can just fly out and be free. So this negotiation of space is really in the center of my art. I'm not sure I was inspired to become an artist. I actually thought I was going to work with science, and started out at university studying science because I'm really curious. And after a while I got irritated because I wanted to connect things a little more. And I think art is really good for that. And the thing is, I'm so curious about the sky. And I think that fantasy is such a great engine. I mean, our brains are so incredible that I thought I was quite limited in the frame I would work in as a scientist. So being an artist, I can work with scientists and I can work with science, but I can engage in much more areas of life, and I like that freedom. And the thing is, I really like to create things. I'm so fascinated about the sky, and I like to connect things which are not really interconnected in the sky. And that is flying with physical airplanes, the control of the sky, and yet this idea of freedom, which is also connected to the sky. How these things merge. And I think you can do that in art. I always was able to fly, but when my dad died, the sadness was so great that I was earthbound. And then I looked into how humans fly, and that is with airplanes. And when I looked at airplanes and I looked at the books of airplanes, I only saw guys. And then at a point I saw one image of a woman, and she had been a fighter pilot during the Second World War in Russia, killing people. And the person who took those images was an American woman pilot who had been flying warplanes during the Second World War. And I was like, what is this? I never heard about it. And women were simply left out of aviation history in the way I knew women were left out of art history. And I was in art school, and I was so sad about the history of women artists. I could not touch it. But I could go over to this area of flying, which has so much more joy and beauty to it, and look into it. And meeting Anne Noggle, who was this photographer, and she had been a pilot during the Second World War, gave me an insight, because she challenged me and said, you need to get your hands dirty. And she gave me a completely new way to work with art, where it's a little bit like method acting. I become what I research.
All right.
So I went out, I visited women that flew during the Second World War, and I wanted to get into their stories in a way that they were not reproducing stories they've told 100 million times before, but allow the pain and the mistakes in it. And I did this hero gallery of female pilots, and then we have 9/11, the two towers fall, and Bush, he goes to war in Afghanistan to hunt terrorists, and Denmark go with them. But I'm really curious, because an argument for the war becomes free the women. So Taliban have been putting the burqas on the women, and they have no rights. And then we go in and free the women and take the burqas out, and woo! So I thought that was quite interesting, and I thought there was a possibility of both working with my old project of the women pilots and discuss the control of the sky. So I take off from Denmark, I find an old airplane in a barn, and then I fly off on this performance flight to Afghanistan and fly through all this red tape just after 9/11.
Ja, nu flyver vi illegalt ind i en krigszone.
So my performance and the film, I create a film after, it's so much a platform where things can be discussed, where the political heat can be taken a little down. And in that film, which is so old, I mean, it came out in 2006, you can see everything that we failed in Afghanistan. In 2006, you could see what we did wrong in that film. And I think often art sort of predicts things that will happen. And I think if more political leaders had not just clapped about my film, saying, "Oh, you're so brave," but actually saw it to the end, I think maybe they could have learned something before it went that bad. I think the messages of art, I'm never trying to directly prove something. I might test, I'm testing something, and then something comes out of it.
Det lykkedes at flyve hele vejen fra København på Lille Skensved til Kabul.
Art can really be a good place to negotiate and discuss how we are in the world together.